Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the pressure to be perfect? Like no matter how hard you try, it's never quite enough. Friend, what if I told you that learning to let go of perfectionism could set you free to experience the joy and peace that God has waiting for you? In today's video, we're going to talk about how you can learn to release perfection and embrace God's grace so that you can live a life of freedom and peace. Welcome, beautiful friend. I'm Tshanina. Let's pursue joy and peace together. The pressure of perfection is a heavy weight, but it's time to start letting go of that burden so that you can take a step forward into true freedom. Here's how you begin. Recognize that perfectionism is a lie. Friend, the first step in letting go of perfectionism is to recognize that the belief that you have to be perfect, to be loved or valued, is a lie. Perfectionism is kind of like a mirage. We've all seen the movies where the guy is in the desert longing for water. He finally sees the pool of water. And perfectionism is kind of like this. It promises that fulfillment, but the closer you get to it, the farther and farther it moves away. The truth is, God's love is not based on perfection. I talk about this verse so often, but it's one you need to have ingrained in your head. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." You don't have to strive for perfection to earn God's love, friend. He accepts you just as you are. Start by challenging the belief that you need to be perfect to be loved. When you get in your head that I need to get this right, I want you to replace that thought, renew your mind, and make it obedient to Christ, and tell yourself, I don't have to be perfect. I'm already loved by God no matter what. Stop striving for perfection and rest in God's grace. Perfectionism often leads you to constantly striving, to constantly pushing yourself to do more, be more, and achieve more. But God invites you to stop the cycle and to rest in His grace instead of trying to feel like you always have to measure up to everyone else. You can think of it this way. Trying to be perfect is like running on a treadmill. You're trying harder and harder, but no matter how fast you go, you're not really getting anywhere. You're just running in circles and it feels exhausting. But God's grace is like stepping off that treadmill after doing all that running and finding the solid ground to put your feet on. Friend, you don't have to keep striving and running full speed ahead, chasing perfection to prove anything. You can walk at your own pace, trusting in God and knowing that His grace is enough to carry you through whatever path He wants you to take. Matthew 11:28 has been such a huge comfort to me through so many various situations and circumstances of my life. The verse says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Friend, you don't have to work yourself into exhaustion. You're called to rest. And letting go of perfectionism is choosing peace over pressure and trusting that God's grace is enough to cover you. Practice moments of stillness throughout your day. Now, this is the one that I struggle with myself. I'll sit down and my brain automatically thinks, oh, I need to go do this or that. And it thinks of all the things that I need to do. But I have to be intentional about being quiet and being still for a few minutes and not have guilt when I sit down. Whether you're having a moment of just prayer or just quiet reflection, or maybe you're taking a few minutes to just do deep breathing, you're choosing to step off of that treadmill and to rest in the presence of the Lord instead of striving for perfection. Trust God to lead, not your need for control. Boy, does this one step on my toes, because perfectionism can often come from your desire to control outcomes, whether it is relationships, at work, or even in our faith. You feel like you need to do everything perfectly so that everything will turn out just right. But the truth is, friend, we oftentimes cannot control every outcome. When I was a kid, we would drive to Pennsylvania to visit my grandparents. And one thing I'll never forget about my grandpa is his love for his garden. He planted a huge garden and he would faithfully work it every day. One thing that I never saw him doing was to go out into his garden, pull up maybe a carrot or the carrot plant, and to see if it was growing correctly, and then put it back into the ground. No, he didn't do that. He planted the seed, he would cover it with the soil, he would water it, he would wait, and then in the perfect timing, he would pull that and harvest all of the carrots that were ready to be harvested. We often stress about timing and how things are going and chasing every little scenario in our brains instead of trusting God, his timing, his perfect will, and his perfect plan for us. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path." Letting go of perfectionism is releasing your need for control and trusting in God's timing. Just like my grandpa trusted the soil and the seasons to bring the perfect harvest, you can trust that God is leading you in the perfect plan and path for your life. What area are you trying to control too much in your life? I want you to sit in that, and I want you to truly think about that. And then I want you to surrender that area and trust God's timing instead of trying to force things to happen. I still have 2 more things to share with you, but I'd love to ask, if this has been helpful, would you mind hitting that like button? This will just help spread it to other people that are looking for the same content. Replace perfection with grace-filled joy. Friend, when you embrace God's grace, you stop focusing on doing everything perfectly, and you start focusing on the joy of simply being loved by God. Years ago, I worked in the student ministry at our church, and one fall, we took the students to a corn maze. I was immediately stressed about this process, knowing that I was going to have to lead some kids through a corn maze. Because if you don't know this about me, I am directionally challenged. We started through the corn maze and I really wanted it to be perfect. I wanted them to have fun. I wanted us to enjoy our time in the corn maze, but I was stressed so much because we kept hitting dead ends after dead ends. We were running in circles, and eventually they had to come find us to help us find the exit. I felt like I had failed these kids. And this is how perfectionism is. It's like being stuck in that corn maze, running in circles and circles and striving for perfection and hitting dead end after dead end. Finding that exit is like finding God's grace and letting go of all that stress and the need to perform, and knowing that God loves you not for what you do, but for who you are. Ephesians 2:8 tells us, "For by grace you are saved through faith, and not of yourselves. It is the gift of God." God's grace isn't about your performance. It's about his gift to you that is freely given. And when you let go of perfection, you're opening up yourself to joy, knowing that you're loved no matter what. Grace, it replaces the pressure for perfection and gives you the freedom to sit in the love that only God can give you. It's time to replace your perfectionist thoughts with moments of joy. When you're going throughout your day and you feel stuck, I want you to take a step back, smile, and thank God that his grace is enough to cover you. Take it one step at a time with God's grace. Friend, letting go of perfectionism is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's about taking small steps towards embracing grace in your daily life. When you're standing at the bottom of a staircase, you don't expect to take one giant step and be at the top. No, you expect to take one step at a time and eventually get to the top. And letting go of perfection is kind of like this. You're taking one step at a time, trusting God and relying on his grace to guide you. 2 Corinthians 9:8 has some great encouragement for us. I don't have this one memorized, so I'm going to read it for us. It says, "And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work." Each small step you take toward letting go of perfectionism is allowing God's grace to fill you, friend. So let go of the all or nothing mindset and trust that God's grace is there in every small moment. Choose one area of your life where you're striving for perfection. And whenever you feel yourself aiming for perfection, I want you to focus on doing your best, knowing that God's grace is going to guide you. Remember that God isn't asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to trust him. And when you choose grace over perfection, you're opening the door to peace, joy, and a deeper relationship with the Lord. So take a minute to rest in God's grace. You don't have to be perfect to experience His love.